Welcome to our deep dive today,
Okay.
where we're going to be exploring the divine obligations of fasting during Ramadan from a Shia perspective.
Right.
We've got some fascinating source material to unpack from Tafseer Hub, ﷺ.
Right.
It's not just about the rules,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at the deeper wisdom behind this practice.
That's right. And Tafsir, as you know, is essentially commentary and explanation on the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a guide to unlock the hidden depths of the scripture.
Exactly.
In this case, the Quran.
We're going beyond just the how-tos of fasting and delving into the why.
Right.
What I found really interesting was the connection this tafsir makes between fasting and the story of Adam, ﷺ.
Oh, yeah.
It really reframes our understanding of why we fast.
Absolutely. It's not just about abstaining from food and drink. It's about aligning ourselves with the divine will, purifying our souls,
Yeah.
and drawing closer to Allah Azza wa Jal.
I love that it's like a spiritual reset button.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in with the first divine obligation, which the tafsir calls prohibited melts.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean?
It's actually a really beautiful concept.
Okay.
Prohibited melts refers to the melting away of sins through the act of fasting.
Interesting.
It's based on a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, ﷺ, wa-ʿalihī,
Okay.
where he outlines 7 benefits of fasting during Ramadan.
Can you share that hadith with us?
Of course, the Prophet Muhammad, ﷺ, said, "O people, an auspicious month has dawned upon you, a blessed month, a month in which there is a night better than 1,000 months, a month in which Allah has made fasting obligatory and made praying at night a voluntary act of worship. Whoever draws closer to Allah by performing any good deed during it is like performing an obligatory act of worship during any other month. And whoever performs an obligatory act during it is like performing 70 obligatory acts during any other month. It is the month of patience, and the reward for patience is paradise. It is the month of sympathy, and a month in which the sustenance of a believer is increased. Whoever feeds a fasting person in it will have his sins forgiven, and he will be saved from the fire, and he will have the same reward as him without his reward being decreased in the slightest."
Wow, there's so much packed into that hadith, but
Yeah.
focusing on the prohibited melts.
Right.
It sounds like fasting is more than just a physical act. It's a way to cleanse our souls from sin.
Exactly. The hadith continues and says, "Fasting is a shield. So when one of you is fasting, he should abstain from obscene language and should not behave foolishly and ignorantly. If someone slanders him or quarrels with him, he should say, 'I am fasting, I am fasting.' I swear by him who holds Muhammad's soul in his hand that the smell coming from the mouth of a fasting person is better in the sight of Allah than the smell of musk. And for the fasting person, there are 2 occasions for joy. One, when he breaks his fast, he is happy, and one, when he meets his Lord, he is happy because of his fasting."
So it's not just about avoiding food and water. It's about purifying our speech and actions as well.
Precisely. And that purification process is key to understanding how fasting dissolves sins.
Oh.
Think of it like fire melting wax. The heat of our sincere efforts combined with the blessings of Ramadan
Right.
purifies our hearts and removes the stains of our past transgressions.
That's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the transformative power of this practice. It's not just about restriction. It's about renewal. So how does this tie into the next divine obligation
Oh, yeah.
of becoming closer to mercy?
Ramadan is a month of immense divine mercy.
Okay.
There's a hadith where Allah, Azza wa Jal, says that after Ramadan, he won't question a servant about their prayers, charity, or fasting.
Wow.
Think about the magnitude of that.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about the mercy bestowed during this time.
That's incredible. But how does the act of fasting cultivate that mercy within us?
It's about empathy and compassion.
Okay.
When we experience those pangs of hunger, we gain a deeper understanding of the struggles faced by those who are less fortunate.
Right.
It compels us to act with kindness and generosity. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that whoever feeds a fasting person in it, Ramadan, will have his sins forgiven, and he will be saved from the fire, and he will have the same reward as him without his reward being decreased in the slightest.
So by denying ourselves, we're actually opening ourselves up to a deeper connection with others and with Allah Azza wa Jal.
That's right. It's a beautiful paradox.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the third divine obligation,
Okay.
which is directly connected to the story of Adam ﷺ.
Now, this is where I think it gets really interesting.
Right.
We all know the story of Adam ﷺ. and his error in the Garden of Eden. But how does that connect to the act of fasting?
The Tafseer draws a powerful parallel between Adam's ﷺ disobedience and our own shortcomings.
Okay.
Just as Adam ﷺ faced consequences for his actions, we too face the repercussions of our choices. Fasting becomes a means of acknowledging our imperfections and seeking forgiveness.
Yeah.
Much like Adam ﷺ repented for his transgression.
So it's like we're replaying that story of seeking forgiveness and returning to a state of purity.
Exactly. And by fasting, we're essentially saying to Allah, Azza wa Jal, we recognize our weaknesses, we seek your mercy, and we strive to do better.
It's a very humbling experience.
Yeah.
And it connects us to the entire history of humanity, recognizing that we're not alone in our struggles. So let's move on to the fourth divine obligation,
Okay.
which is easing the pangs of death.
Right.
Now, this one sounds a little bit, well, morbid.
I understand why you'd say that.
Yeah.
But the Tafsir presents it as a source of comfort and hope, not fear.
Okay.
It's based on a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, ﷺ, that says, fasting is a shield from the fire, just as one of you protects himself from the enemy with a shield. He was then asked, O Messenger of Allah, inform us about the pangs of death.
Okay.
He replied, for a believer, the pangs of death are like the unloosening of a knot from a rope. But for a hypocrite, they are like being cut apart with scissors while one is still alive.
So the idea is that by fasting in this life, we can actually ease our transition into the next.
Exactly. It's not about focusing on death in a morbid way, but rather acknowledging its inevitability and preparing for it in a spiritually meaningful way.
It reframes the way we think about fasting, making it not just a practice for this life, but a preparation for the hereafter as well.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it ties in beautifully with the idea of fasting as a form of security from hunger, which is our fifth divine obligation.
Now that sounds paradoxical.
Yeah.
How can denying ourselves food actually provide security against hunger?
It's about gratitude and mindful consumption.
Okay.
When we fast, we become acutely aware of the blessings we often take for granted.
Right.
We learn to appreciate the sustenance we have and to avoid wastefulness.
Okay.
Imam Ali, ﷺ, said, remember three things whenever you see a blessing: that Allah can replace it with a better one, that he can take it away from you, and that he can punish you because of it. It's about recognizing that everything we have is a gift from Allah, Azza wa Jal, and that we should treat it with respect.
Yeah.
It's interesting, there's a lot of talk these days about food insecurity and overconsumption.
Yeah.
This ancient wisdom from the Tafsir feels incredibly relevant to our modern context. Absolutely. It's a reminder that these teachings are not just for a specific time and place. They offer timeless wisdom that can guide us in navigating the challenges of any era.
So by experiencing hunger in a controlled way, we develop a deeper appreciation for food and are less likely to squander it in the future.
Right.
It's like we're immunizing ourselves against future hardship, both physically and spiritually.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the sixth divine obligation.
Okay.
Which emphasizes the importance of intention.
Right.
That fasting should be a pure deed.
In Islam, intention is everything.
Right.
How does this relate specifically to the act of fasting? Fasting becomes a truly pure deed when it's done solely for the pleasure of Allah, Azza wa Jal, free from any worldly motivations.
Right.
It's not about showing off, seeking praise from others, or even just following the rules. It's about a sincere desire to connect with the divine.
So it's not just about the outward actions, but the inward state of our hearts.
Exactly. It's a reminder that Allah, Azza wa Jal, sees not just what we do, but why we do it.
And this purity of intention enhances the value of our actions in the eyes of Allah, Azza wa Jal.
Exactly.
This reminds me of a hadith about the one who memorizes the Quran with difficulty receiving a double reward.
Right.
It highlights how the sincerity of our efforts, even if imperfect, holds immense value.
That's a beautiful connection.
Yeah.
And it applies to all acts of worship.
Yeah.
Whether it's prayer, charity, or fasting.
Yeah.
When we purify our intentions and focus solely on pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal, our actions become elevated.
That's powerful. So it's about checking ourselves throughout Ramadan, making sure that our fast is truly for Allah Azza wa Jal.
Right.
That our motivations are pure and we're not just going through the motions.
Precisely.
Okay. And that brings us to the seventh and final divine obligation of Ramadan fasting,
Okay.
which is instilling fear.
Right.
Now, this is one that I think can be a little bit tricky. Fear, often seen as a negative emotion.
Mm-hmm.
How does fasting cultivate a positive kind of fear?
You've hit the nail on the head.
Right.
It's not about paralyzing fear,
Right.
but rather a healthy awareness of Allah Azza wa Jal's power and justice.
Mm-hmm.
It's about developing taqwa.
Taqwa is a term we often hear.
Right.
But could you explain it a bit further for our listeners?
Sure.
Especially those who might not be as familiar with Islamic terminology.
Of course.
Yeah.
Taqwa is often translated as God consciousness.
Okay.
But it encompasses so much more than that.
Hmm.
It's about having a deep reverence and awe for Allah Azza wa Jal, recognizing his presence in all things,
Yeah.
and striving to align our actions with his will. It's a state of mindful awareness that guides us towards righteousness and keeps us from straying from the path.
So it's about developing that internal compass that helps us make choices that are pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jal.
Precisely. And fasting helps cultivate that awareness because it requires discipline,
Right. There's a-
self-control,
and a constant remembrance of our dependence on Allah Azza wa Jal.
Yeah.
When we deny our physical desires for His sake, we strengthen our spiritual connection and deepen our sense of taqwa.
This is fascinating. It seems like each of these divine obligations builds upon the previous one,
Yeah.
leading us on a journey of spiritual transformation.
That's a wonderful observation.
Yeah.
And it highlights the interconnectedness of these obligations.
Mhm.
We can't truly purify our souls without drawing closer to mercy.
Right.
We can't ease the pangs of death without cultivating taqwa.
Yeah.
Each obligation is a stepping stone towards deeper spiritual understanding and connection with Allah Azza wa Jal.
This has been an incredible start to our deep dive. I'm already feeling a shift in my understanding of Ramadan.
Okay.
It's not just a set of rules, it's a profound spiritual journey.
It truly is. And the beauty of this journey is that it's accessible to everyone. We all have the capacity to cultivate these divine obligations within ourselves.
That's so encouraging. I'm curious, though. Yeah.
There are times when fasting can feel challenging, especially in our modern context with all the distractions and temptations around us.
Right.
How does the Tafseer address this?
The Tafseer Hub ʿalayhī, ﷺ, offers a lot of practical advice for navigating these challenges.
Okay.
One thing it emphasizes is the importance of seeking knowledge.
Okay.
Imam Ali, alayhi salam, said, "Knowledge is a vast ocean. Dive into it."
So it's about actively learning more about the practice of fasting, its spiritual significance, and how to apply these teachings to our daily lives.
Exactly. And it's not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about implementing it.
Okay.
Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, alayhi salam, said, "The one who acts upon what he knows is like the one who knows what he acts upon."
It's about bridging that gap between knowing and doing.
Yeah.
And that can be a challenge, especially during Ramadan,
Right.
when we might be feeling tired, hungry, or just overwhelmed by everything going on.
Absolutely. But the Tafsir reminds us that these challenges are not meant to break us, but to strengthen us.
Right.
It's through these trials that we develop resilience, patience,
Yeah.
and a deeper reliance on Allah Azza wa Jal.
There's a verse in the Quran that speaks to that, right?
Mhm.
And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. Quran 2.155.
Yes, that's a powerful reminder that difficulties are an inevitable part of life,
Right.
and that it's through our patience and perseverance that we earn Allah Azza wa Jal's favor.
Mhm.
The Tafsir also encourages us to find support in our communities.
That's so important. Ramadan is often seen as a very personal and inward journey,
Right.
but it's also a time for coming together and strengthening our bonds with one another.
Exactly. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "The believer is to the believer like the parts of a building, each part strengthening the other."
So we can lean on one another for support, encouragement, and inspiration throughout this journey.
Absolutely. And we can also draw inspiration from the stories of those who came before us. The Tafsir is filled with examples of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the Imams, navigating challenges with grace,
Right.
wisdom, and a deep connection to Allah Azza wa Jal.
It's like having a roadmap for our own journey, knowing that others have walked this path before us.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the concept of wilayah,
Okay.
which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more about what that means
What's that?
and how it relates to Ramadan?
In Shia Islam, Walaya refers to the spiritual authority and guidance of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wa-ʿalayhī, and his divinely appointed successors,
Okay.
the Imams ﷺ.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing their role as intermediaries between humanity and the divine.
So it's not just about following the rules of Islam, but also seeking guidance from those who embody its true spirit.
Precisely. And the Tafseer Hub ﷺ emphasizes that a true understanding of the Quran and Islamic principles can only be achieved through the lens of walaya.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness between the outward practices of Islam and the inward state of our hearts.
So it's about approaching Ramadan with a sense of reverence, not just for the rituals themselves, but for the lineage of spiritual guidance that has been passed down to us.
Exactly. And that reverence is intertwined with the concept of intention, which we discussed earlier. It's not enough to simply go through the motions of fasting.
Right.
We have to cultivate the right intention.
Yeah.
A sincere desire to connect with Allah, Azza wa Jal, and to follow in the footsteps of those who have come before us.
That's so beautiful. It's like we're weaving together all these different threads.
Yeah.
The rituals, the intentions, the spiritual guidance to create this tapestry of meaning and connection.
That's a wonderful way to put it. And it highlights the richness and depth of this practice.
Right.
Fasting is not just a physical act. It's a spiritual journey that connects us to the heart of Islam and to the legacy of those who have dedicated their lives to embodying its teachings.
This has been so insightful. I feel like we've been peeling back the layers of Ramadan, revealing the hidden gems of wisdom within.
And there's always more to uncover.
Right.
The Tafseer Hub ﷺ is a treasure trove of knowledge and insight. And I encourage everyone to explore it further.
Absolutely. And now that we have a deeper understanding of the divine obligations of fasting, I'm curious to learn more about the specific virtues and rewards associated with this practice.
Okay.
The Tafsir mentions some pretty incredible things.
It certainly does. The rewards of fasting are as boundless as the mercy of Azza wa Jal.
One that really stood out to me was the idea of fasting acting as a shield against the fire of hell.
Oh, yeah.
That's a powerful imagery.
It is. And it's based on a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad, ﷺ, who said fasting is a shield from the fire of hell.
It makes you think about the protective nature of this practice.
Right.
Not just in the hereafter, but in this life too.
Yeah.
If we can control our desires and impulses through fasting,
Right.
we're less likely to be consumed by them leading us away from actions that could harm us.
Precisely. It's about building that inner strength and resilience that protects us from both spiritual and worldly pitfalls. And the tafsir connects this protection to the development of taqwa.
Okay.
That awe and reverence for Allah Azza wa Jal that guides us towards righteousness.
It's like fasting creates a barrier between us and those things that could lead us astray.
Exactly. And beyond protection, there's a profound sense of reward associated with fasting.
Okay.
The tafsir describes the breath of a fasting person as being more fragrant to Allah Azza wa Jal than the scent of musk.
Imagine that something as simple as our breath becoming a beautiful offering to the divine.
It elevates the act of fasting beyond mere physical discipline, turning it into a fragrant act of worship.
It underscores that Allah Azza wa Jal values our sincere efforts, even in the smallest of things.
Right.
And speaking of rewards, the Tafsir mentions a hadith where Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, alayhi salam, says that during each night of Ramadan, Allah Azza wa Jal frees a multitude of people from the fire of hell.
The magnitude of that is staggering, isn't it?
Yeah.
It highlights the immense mercy and forgiveness bestowed upon us during this blessed month.
It really motivates you to make the most of this time, to strive for those acts of worship and kindness that draw us closer to Allah. Allah.
Right.
And it's not just about individual rewards.
Yeah.
Fasting has incredible social benefits too.
Absolutely. The tafsir emphasizes the communal aspect of Ramadan, highlighting the importance of unity, compassion, and helping those in need. There's a hadith where Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, alayhi salam, says, "The best charity is that which is given in Ramadan."
It's a reminder that our acts of worship shouldn't be solely focused inward. We should be extending that compassion and generosity outwards,
Right.
creating a ripple effect of goodness throughout our communities.
And this interconnectedness between personal and social transformation is a key theme in the Tafseer.
Right.
Fasting becomes a means of purifying ourselves while also contributing to the betterment of society.
This deep dive has been truly enlightening. It's made me realize that Ramadan is so much more than just abstaining from food and drink.
Indeed, it's a multifaceted journey of spiritual growth, self-discovery, and connecting with the divine.
And speaking of self-discovery, one of the things that often comes up during Ramadan is the realization of how much we rely on habits and distractions in our daily lives.
Oh, yeah.
When we remove those things through fasting, it can be a real eye-opener.
Absolutely. Fasting has a way of stripping away the superficial layers, revealing our true selves and our deepest desires. It's a time for introspection, self-reflection, and confronting those aspects of ourselves that we might normally avoid.
It's like holding up a mirror to our souls.
Right.
And sometimes what we see can be uncomfortable.
That's true, but the Tafseer reminds us that this discomfort is a necessary part of the process. It's through confronting our weaknesses that we can begin to transform them. Imam Ali, ﷺ, said, "The one who knows himself knows his Lord."
So it's about using this time of introspection to gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship with Allah. That's Azza.
Exactly. And that understanding can lead to profound transformation.
Right.
The Tafseer emphasizes that Ramadan is not just about abstaining from certain things. It's about replacing those things with something better.
So instead of focusing on what we're giving up,
Right.
we should focus on what we're gaining.
Precisely. We're replacing food and drink with spiritual nourishment. We're replacing distractions with contemplation. We're replacing negativity with gratitude.
It's like a spiritual detox. We're cleansing our bodies and our minds, creating space for something more meaningful to emerge.
And that something more meaningful is our connection with Allah, Azza.
Yeah.
The Tafseer reminds us that the ultimate goal of fasting is to draw closer to the divine.
That makes sense. But how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
How do we translate this period of fasting into a lasting connection with Allah Azza?
That's a great question, and one that the Tafseer addresses in depth.
Okay.
It emphasizes the importance of carrying the lessons of Ramadan into the rest of the year.
Okay.
Imam Ali, ﷺ, said, "Do not be like the one who seeks knowledge and then abandons it."
So it's about integrating these practices of self-control, mindfulness, and compassion into our daily lives.
Yeah.
Even after Ramadan has ended.
Exactly. Ramadan is like a training ground for the soul. We develop these spiritual muscles during this month, and it's up to us to continue strengthening them throughout the year.
But it can be challenging to maintain that level of intention and focus once the excitement of Ramadan has passed.
That's true. But the Tafseer offers guidance on how to navigate these challenges. It encourages us to set realistic goals, to find support in our communities, and to constantly remind ourselves of the rewards of staying connected to Allah Azza wa Jal.
So it's about making small, sustainable changes that we can build upon over time.
Exactly. It's not about being perfect. It's about progress. And every step we take towards Allah Azza wa Jal, no matter how small, is a victory.
This has been so inspiring. It's given me a whole new perspective on Ramadan and how to carry its lessons into the rest of my life.
That's great to hear.
But there's one topic that we haven't touched on yet that I think is really important to address.
Oh, okay.
And that's the issue of cultural practices that have become intertwined with religious observances.
That's an important topic. It's where the line between faith and tradition can become blurred.
Exactly. And it can be a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
Especially during Ramadan when emotions run high.
You're right. It's a conversation that requires nuance and understanding. The Tafseer Hub ﷺ provides a valuable framework for navigating this complex terrain.
Okay.
It reminds us that the core principles of Islam are universal and timeless. While cultural expressions of faith can vary across time and place.
So how do we differentiate between authentic religious practices and those that are merely cultural customs?
The Tafseer emphasizes the importance of referring to the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the Imams as our primary sources of guidance.
That makes sense. We need to ground ourselves in the foundational texts of Islam to ensure that our practices align with its true spirit.
Exactly, and that requires us to engage in critical thinking, questioning assumptions and seeking knowledge from reliable sources. It's about approaching our faith with an open mind and a sincere desire to understand its true essence.
So it's not about blindly following traditions. but about understanding their origins
Mm,
and ensuring that they align with the teachings of Islam.
precisely. And that discernment is crucial,
Right.
especially in today's world where information and misinformation are readily available.
Now let's dive into some specific examples of cultural practices that often come up during Ramadan.
Okay.
One common practice is the elaborate iftars,
Right.
or breaking of the fast meals.
Yes. These iftars can be a beautiful way to gather with loved ones and celebrate the breaking of the fast, but they can also become occasions for extravagance and ostentation,
Right.
which can detract from the spiritual focus of Ramadan.
That's a valid point.
Eh.
The Tafseer Hub ﷺ reminds us that Ramadan is a time for simplicity,
Yeah.
moderation, and focusing on our inward journey towards Allah Azza wa Jal. It's not about impressing others with lavish displays of wealth or culinary skills.
Exactly. And this emphasis on simplicity aligns with the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, wa sallam,
Okay.
who said, "The best of you are those who are best to their families."
So it's about creating a warm and welcoming atmosphere for our loved ones, but without going overboard or losing sight of the true purpose of Ramadan.
Precisely. And that can involve being mindful of our spending,
Mm-hmm.
choosing nutritious and simple meals,
Right.
and focusing on spending quality time with our families and friends.
It's about shifting the focus from material indulgence to spiritual nourishment. Another cultural practice that often sparks debate
Okay.
is the giving of gifts during Ramadan.
Yes, gift giving can be a beautiful way to express love and appreciation,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also become a source of financial burden and social pressure,
Right.
especially when it turns into a competition of who can give the most expensive or elaborate gifts.
That's true, and it can take away from the spirit of generosity and selflessness
Yeah.
that Ramadan is supposed to cultivate.
You're right. The Tafseer Hub ﷺ reminds us that the true spirit of Ramadan is about generosity and compassion,
Right.
not about material possessions or social status.
So how can we approach gift giving in a way that reflects the values of Islam?
The Tafsir encourages us to prioritize acts of kindness, charity, and service over extravagant gifts.
Okay.
It's about focusing on the needs of others and contributing to the well-being of our communities. Imam Ali ﷺ said, "The best of people are those who benefit others."
That's a beautiful reminder. So instead of focusing on material gifts,
Yeah,
we can focus on giving our time, our energy, and our resources to those in need.
exactly. That could involve volunteering at a local charity,
Okay.
donating to a worthy cause, or simply extending a helping hand to our neighbors and community members.
It's about recognizing that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in spiritual abundance and the impact we make on the lives of others.
And that brings us back to the concept of taqwa.
Okay.
Fasting helps us cultivate taqwa,
Yeah.
which in turn guides our actions and helps us make choices that align with the values of Islam.
Taqwa acts as our internal compass, guiding us towards righteousness and helping us discern between what is truly beneficial and what is simply a distraction.
Precisely, taqwa is the foundation upon which all other virtues are built. It's the key to unlocking the transformative potential of Ramadan and carrying its lessons into the rest of our lives.
Now, another cultural practice that is often debated is the celebration of Eid al-Fitr,
Okay.
which marks the end of Ramadan.
Eid al-Fitr is a joyous occasion, a time to celebrate the completion of our fast and to express gratitude for the blessings of Ramadan.
But it can also become an occasion for excessive spending,
Right.
indulgence, and neglecting the spiritual lessons of Ramadan.
That's a valid concern. The Tafseer Hub ﷺ reminds us that Eid al-Fitr is not simply a day for feasting and merrymaking. It's a day for reflection, gratitude, and renewing our commitment to the path of righteousness.
So it's about striking a balance between celebration and contemplation,
Right.
enjoying the festivities while also remembering the spiritual significance of this day.
Exactly. The Tafsir encourages us to begin the day with prayer,
Okay.
expressing gratitude to Allah, Azza wa Jal, for his guidance and mercy. It's about gathering with loved ones,
Great.
sharing meals, and exchanging gifts in a spirit of love and generosity.
And it's also a time for seeking forgiveness, renewing our intentions, and resolving to carry the spiritual lessons of Ramadan into the rest of the year.
Precisely, Eid al-Fitr is not the end of our spiritual journey.
Right.
It's the beginning of a new chapter, an opportunity to apply the lessons we've learned and to continue striving for excellence in all aspects of our lives.
This deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of the nuances of Ramadan,
Yeah.
both the spiritual and cultural aspects.
It's been a pleasure exploring these topics with you, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to approach Ramadan with a renewed sense of intention and purpose.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that navigating the complexities of faith and tradition can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It's a journey that requires constant reflection,
Right.
seeking knowledge, and striving to align our actions with our beliefs.
And the Tafseer Hub ﷺ, ﷺ, provides us with a valuable guide on this path,
Yeah.
offering insights and wisdom that illuminate the spiritual dimensions of Ramadan and beyond.
It's a treasure trove of knowledge that can help us deepen our understanding of Islam and cultivate a more meaningful relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal.
Absolutely. And it's a journey
Yeah.
that doesn't end with the sighting of the Eid's moon.
Right.
The Tafsir encourages us to carry the spirit of Ramadan into the rest of the year, applying the lessons we've learned to all aspects of our lives.
So the real question is, how do we translate this transformative experience into lasting change? How do we hold on to that Ramadan spirit throughout the year?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Tafseer Hub, ﷺ, offers some valuable guidance on this.
Okay.
It emphasizes the importance of consistency in our acts of worship, seeking knowledge, and striving to embody the virtues of Islam in our daily interactions.
So it's about making Ramadan a springboard for continuous spiritual growth, not just a once-a-year event.
Exactly. It's about weaving the threads of Ramadan into the fabric of our lives.
Yeah.
The discipline, the mindfulness, the compassion.
Right.
These are qualities we can cultivate year-round.
One thing that resonated with me is the idea that Ramadan is like a spiritual training ground.
Oh, yeah.
We build up our spiritual muscles during this month, but it's up to us to keep using them afterwards.
That's a great analogy. It's like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You can't expect to see results if you only go once a year.
Right.
You have to make it a regular part of your routine.
So how do we make those spiritual practices a regular part of our lives? I think a lot of people struggle with that after Ramadan.
It's certainly a challenge, but the Tafsir offers practical tips. It encourages us to set realistic goals, starting small and gradually building up our practices over time.
Okay.
It also reminds us to be patient with ourselves,
Right.
recognizing that spiritual growth is a journey, not a destination.
It's about progress,
Yeah.
not perfection. And that's a really important reminder.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in the idea of doing everything perfectly
Yeah.
that we end up doing nothing at all.
That's true. And the Tafsir emphasizes that even small acts of worship, when performed consistently and with the right intention,
Right.
can have a profound impact on our spiritual development.
So it could be something as simple as incorporating a few minutes of dhikr into our daily routine,
Okay.
making an effort to read a portion of the Quran each day, or simply taking a few moments each day to reflect on our blessings and express gratitude to Allah Azza wa Jal.
Exactly. Those small, consistent actions can create a ripple effect in our lives, gradually transforming us from within.
It's like building a spiritual foundation brick by brick.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, that foundation will become strong enough to withstand the storms of life.
That's a beautiful image. And the Tafsir reminds us that we don't have to do this alone.
Right.
We have the guidance of the Quran, the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, wa sallam, and the wisdom of the Imams ﷺ to light our way.
And we have each other, our families, our communities, our fellow believers.
Yeah.
We can all support each other on this journey.
Absolutely. And perhaps most importantly, we have the infinite mercy and forgiveness of Allah Subhanahu to support us every step of the way.
This deep dive has been truly eye-opening. It's given me a whole new perspective on Ramadan and its transformative potential. I'm leaving feeling inspired and hopeful, knowing that I have the tools and the guidance to continue this journey of spiritual growth long after Ramadan has ended.
And that's what it's all about. Ramadan is a gift, a time of renewal and reflection. But the real gift is the opportunity to carry its lessons with us throughout the year, transforming our lives and drawing closer to Allah Azza wa Jal.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the divine obligations of Ramadan fasting. May Allah accept our efforts and guide us all towards His light.
O He, the wonders of whose mightiness will never end. Bless Muhammad and his household and prevent us from deviation concerning your mightiness. O He, the term of whose kingdom will never cease. Bless Muhammad and his household and release our necks from your vengeance. O He, the treasuries of whose mercy will never be exhausted. Bless Muhammad and his household and appoint for us a portion of your mercy. O He whom eyes fall short of seeing, Bless Muhammad and his household and bring us close to your nearness. O He before whose greatness all great things are small. Bless Muhammad and his household and give us honor with you. O He to whom all hidden tidings are manifest. Bless Muhammad and his household and expose us not before you. O God, remove our need for the gifts of the givers through your gift. Spare us the loneliness of those who break off through your joining, that we may beseech no one along with your free giving, that we may feel lonely at no one's absence along with your bounty, O God. Bless Muhammad and his household. Scheme for us, not against us. Devise to our benefit, not to our loss. Give the turn to prevail to us, not to others. O God, bless Muhammad and his household. Protect us from yourself. Safeguard us through yourself. Guide us to yourself, and take us not far from yourself. He whom you protect stays safe. He whom you guide knows, and he whom you bring near yourself takes the spoils. O God, bless Muhammad and his household, and spare us the cutting edge of time's turning changes, the evil of Satan's snares, and the bitterness of the sovereign's aggression. O God, the spared are spared only through the bounty of your strength, so bless Muhammad and his household and spare us. The givers give only through the bounty of your wealth, so bless Muhammad and his household and give to us. The guided are guided only by the light of your face, so bless Muhammad and his household and guide us.